On November 18th, 2001, Nintendo launched their 6th generation console, the Nintendo GameCube. With the GameCube launching the same month as Microsoft's first console and Sony's PS2 already being in the market a year prior, the GameCube's launch lineup was important to showcase a strong start for the console. When I look back at console launches, no other console will ever compete with the stellar lineup of titles available for a new piece of hardware like the GameCube did. When it launched in Japan on September 14, 2001, only 3 games were made available: Luigi's Mansion, Wave Race Blue Storm, and Super Monkey Ball. Thankfully, the US got a more robust lineup with the following 12 games: All-Star Baseball 2002, Batman Vengeance, Crazy Taxi, Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX 2, Disney's Tarzan Untamed, Luigi's Mansion, Madden NFL 2002, NHL Hits 2002, Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader, Super Monkey Ball, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, and Wave Race Blue Storm. What was more exciting was seeing the games that were still launching in the time for the holiday season before the end of 2001. Those titles were FIFA Soccer 2002, Extreme G3, SSX Tricky, Pikmin, NFL Quarterback Club 2002, The Simpsons Road Rage, Universal Studios Theme Parks Adventure, and the hotly anticipated Super Smash Bros. Melee. With a total of 20 games available within the launch window, there was no shortage of titles available for early Cube adopters. The GameCube was first revealed at a press conference in Japan in August of 2000. The system was originally codenamed Dolphin, which still retained that name in some form post-release. The model of the console and its peripherals all start with DOL, being short for Dolphin. However, when the GameCube was showcased at E3 2001, the games on display were nothing short of stunning. It was also the first console to feature a first-party developed wireless controller called the Wavebird, but unfortunately was not ready at launch. While the console lacked media features that the competitors had, such as DVD playback, Nintendo was focused on the GameCube being a gaming system first and foremost, and wanted developers to have more power under the hood than the PlayStation 2, as well as more development ease.
I think Sony has given everyone a chisel, and they can create this piece of artwork with a chisel. If you make one mistake, you can't erase that mistake. Where the Nintendo is like the pencil, where you can go through, create your world. If you make mistakes, it's easy to go back and optimize things the way you need to optimize them.
The GameCube did underperform against its competitors, selling only 21.71 million units worldwide, but those who had one knew how amazing it truly was. So I have fond memories of getting the GameCube on Christmas of 2001. So I actually still have my original box, still with the price tag with Toys R Us showing the $199. And I remember being in middle school, all my friends would gather up at the lunch table, we'd be going through GamePro magazine and Nintendo Power, and people were talking about what the PlayStation 2, Metal Gear Solid 2 was coming out, and GTA 3 was out. Meanwhile, me and a buddy of mine, we were like gung-ho about the GameCube, we were psyched about the launch lineup, and then we had some people who were jumping on board with Microsoft's new console, the Xbox. It was a really awesome time because here was this new competitor coming into the fray against Sony and Nintendo, but like at the end of the day, I was a Nintendo diehard and I could not wait to get the GameCube. However, my story goes a little bit further than that. So I remember my brother being really insistent on telling me that I was not getting the GameCube, that my parents were trying to get it, they couldn't get it, it's been sold out everywhere, and it bummed me out, it really did. And then it didn't help that I had a neighbor of mine that was telling me he found that he got it for Christmas, but it was hidden in the closet, and I was like, man, this stinks, I'm not gonna get it. And then I remember that Christmas morning opening up that big box, and there it was the GameCube with Luigi's Mansion, Wave Race Blue Storm, and the 59 block card. And I just couldn't believe it, I was so stoked. And on top of that, my brothers had additionally gotten me Star Wars Rogue Leader, Rogue Squadron 2, NHL Hits 2002, and Super Smash Bros. Melee. So that is a memory that will always be held near and dear to me. And I remember right away hooking up the console after everybody opened up their gifts. I popped in Super Smash Bros. Melee and just seeing the visual leap coming from the N64 to the GameCube at a time where there were visual leaps that were leaps and bounds ahead of its predecessor console, unlike nowadays with like the PS4 to the PS5. It was just an amazing experience that you had to kind of be there to see it. But that's just my favorite memory. I have a few content creators that wanted to jump in and tell me what their favorite memory or thoughts of the GameCube were. So, take it away.
Hi there, James from How to Game Differently. So the GameCube is my all-time favourite console. It came out in the perfect time of my life. You know, I was around about 8-9 years old to about 12-13 when it was like at its prime. I just had so much free time to play these games, and they were amazing games. Absolutely fantastic games. You know, you had games like Metroid Prime, you had Super Smash Melee, you had amazing JRPGs like Baiting Kaitos, you know, just absolutely fantastic games. And you know, the controller, say what you will about this wacky controller, it was so well designed to just form around your hand, and there's just curvedness and just, it's a very well designed controller. Looks weird, but really well designed. Hence why people still use it today. As a memory, favourite memory of the GameCube, I guess just the era itself. You know, we didn't have the internet really around that time. You just kind of got information about games through magazines. Sometimes there'd be like a DVD of trailers that you'd get. It wasn't really advertised on TV, at least in the UK it wasn't. A lot of games were a bit of a mystery to a lot of us. So you kind of picked and chose and like kind of really gambled with a lot of games back then. And it all led to me finding my favourite game of all time. And that game is Tales of Symphonia, which if you follow me at all, you know I love this game. This is by far my favourite game of all time. And I just got off of the whim. You know, it was just the basis that it looked cool. I got it. I didn't actually even enjoy it at the start. I played it a little bit, and put it away. I think it came out the same year Metroid Prime 2 came out, and I just jumped straight onto that. Came back to Tales of a bit later on, and yeah, love happened. If you can love a game, I think you can love a game. And also, just as another note about the GameCube, how cool are the little discs? Like you compared it to like the PlayStation 2, which just had like normal disc size and everything, but this little disc held a whole game on. I granted Tales of you had to have 2 discs for, but you had an entire roster of so many different games all on that one little disc. Madness. Absolutely, like Nintendo magic is what I call it. That's enough rambling from me. Pass you on to the next one. Thank you, GameCube Galaxy, for allowing me to come back onto one of your videos.
I'm Ty from Down the Warp Pipe, and I want to thank Marcelo from GameCube Galaxy for having me on here to talk about my fondest memory of GameCube. But that's actually the funny thing here. I never owned a GameCube back in the day, and actually still don't, as I just use my Wii to play them right now. However, my fondest memory of GameCube games is actually playing through all of the Mario parties with a bunch of friends during an Extra Life charity stream. This was about 8 years ago, so unfortunately I don't have any footage to show you as we didn't save it and broadcast on Twitch, but we went under the name Mario Party Platoon. The GameCube games here, I didn't own at the time and had to hunt them down. I managed to pick them up from a couple different local game shops, but primarily ANC Games. However, my fondest memory of that night is when me and my buddy Pete went to McDonald's and actually placed an order for 200 Chicken McNuggets to feed everyone that was playing Mario Party on GameCube. The assistant manager promptly let out a laugh of and then my buddy Pete said, yeah. Which then the assistant manager responded with, let me go check. And we eventually did get those 200 Chicken McNuggets. But like I said, I didn't play a whole lot of GameCube. I've just started adding to my library, and I can't wait to play Luigi's Mansion, maybe next Halloween, as I just recently picked it up after playing through the third one with my wife on the Switch.
Now that the GameCube is 20 years old. It's so awesome to see that over the last 5 to 10 years, this console has gained so much love and respect and appreciation that it should have had when it was released. But it's such an amazing console. It holds up so well today. It still has some amazing games, and it's such a blast to play. Now for me, this console was released at a time in my life where myself and my friends, we were all starting to go our separate ways. We were going to college, we were going to the military, we were all kind of splitting up. So what once was a constantly plugged in Nintendo 64 with 4 controllers, the GameCube, we never really got time to really sit down and do that with. And so of all of the games I've played on the GameCube and all the amazing memories and moments I have from it, this one is the most valuable for me. And that is on March 9th, 2004, Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes was released. And at the time, a friend of mine flew in from California. I had pre-ordered the game, paid for it in full, and on release date, we went to Game Crazy to pick up the game, and the Postal Service had not dropped the game off yet. They hadn't got it the day before, and so they were still waiting on the delivery. We went back to the house, obviously a little frustrated, but I called the store clerk probably 10 to 15 times before he got frustrated and asked for my name and number, and he told me he'd give me a call whenever the game arrived. About 4:30 that afternoon, that evening, we were able to pick up the Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. This is still that copy from so long ago, 17 years now. But what's so important about this game, and for me personally, is that when we picked this game up, we played through it that night, beat the game early the next morning, and he ended up going back home just a couple days later. Now what's so important is that that was the last time that I was ever able to see him. He ended up passing away about 6 months after that. And so for me, when I look at the GameCube and I look at Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes, I'm reminded of a childhood friend of mine who I knew for 15 years. And so not only is it a nostalgia factor from a game, an awesome gaming memory and a tremendous game, but I look at the GameCube and I see friends of mine. I see memories of Christmases and after school parties and just constantly playing Nintendo with a lot of guys. And yes, we didn't get to play a lot of GameCube together, but like I said, having this memory of him, it's always a special place in my heart. So I know that's cheesy, I know that's corny, but as always, take care, be good, and we'll see you all next time.
Hello, I am Vidi of Video Games for Fun. Happy 20 years to the Nintendo GameCube, even though you were released in Australia in 2002. In fact, my favourite memory of the system is probably just that, getting the system. I think it was around October 2002. I was going through, or preparing to go through, a life-changing operation, and I was really making it clear I wanted a GameCube. One night, as I was really starting to recover, there was a big bag on the table from my parents. It was a GameCube, bundled with Super Mario Sunshine and a memory card. I played Mario Sunshine and Super Smash Bros. Melee not long after. Those two titles are part of a library of games that was probably the reason at the time I chose the GameCube over its competitors. That, or I was a Nintendo fan through the SNES and Nintendo 64. I have fond memories of playing games like my all-time favourite, Metroid Prime, or doing multiplayer sessions of Smash Bros, Mario Kart Double Dash and the Mario Party games. The GameCube still sits on my retro shelf today, even while I have a backwards compatible Nintendo Wii in a cupboard. I still play on the GameCube to this day, plus it's got one of my favourite controllers in gaming history. Happy 20 years to the purple lunchbox with a handle.
Hey GCG, thanks for having me to your galaxy for this pretty cool event. I'm John from Adults Have Toys Too, and it's really cool that the GameCube is celebrating its 20th anniversary. Despite how big of a Nintendo fan I am, I actually didn't get into the GameCube until later in its life, which for this system is actually not a bad thing. There was some really amazing stuff that came around midway through its life cycle. Some of the games that really stood out to me at the time was Soul Calibur 2, especially after the amount of time I put into Soul Calibur 1 on the Dreamcast. And also the Sonic games that they did bring over to the GameCube. It was really cool to see Sega jump into the Nintendo side. It was also really cool to see Nintendo get into the more mature side of gaming, especially considering how childish the system looks. Sorry. But they had Metal Gear Solid, they had multiple Resident Evil games, including Resident Evil 4, they had Eternal Darkness. They were really expanding what it was that they were allowing on the system, and they were really the better for it. And one game that really stood out to me was Animal Crossing. It really showed a different side of gaming and kind of changed the way I looked at the medium as a whole. This asymmetrical family interaction really is something different than your general action or puzzle game. It really added something to the art form of video games. Plus, it came with its own memory card, which was kind of necessary since it took this entire thing up. So yeah, while I didn't jump in directly at the beginning, the GameCube still had a huge impact on me and how I looked at gaming as a whole. Back to you.
Thank you guys, that was phenomenal. Hearing everybody's thoughts and memories of the GameCube is awesome, especially celebrating its 20th anniversary right now. Going from the N64 to GameCube was a true visual leap, unlike consoles nowadays being incremental updates. The higher frame rates, greater visual fidelity, and another unique controller that, to this day, is my favorite controller of all time. That being said, let's take a quick look at all of the launch window titles that were released between the first day of launch to the end of 2001. All-Star Baseball 2002 was published by Acclaim and developed by Iguana Entertainment. Now, I will admit, sports sims were never really my favorite games to play, but I do enjoy the occasional sports sim. All-Star Baseball 2002 is a really solid baseball game that's easy to pick up and play. It has its traditional exhibition and season modes, as well as home run derby modes. For the first baseball game to grace the GameCube coming from the N64, the graphics here are really good. Definitely some nice stadium details and player models. The only aspect that felt odd was the batting timing window. There were times where the ball passed the screen when I swung and it still registered a hit. At the same token, I didn't really mind that. Overall, a very competent baseball game that was a good start for the franchise on the GameCube.
Shortstop, Derek Jeter. Ground ball to third.
Great backhanded grab there to keep that ball from getting through.
Batman Vengeance was published by Ubisoft and developed by Ubisoft Montreal. I remember first seeing this game on the PS2 and being mind blown at how much it captured the essence and feel of the amazing cartoon. Having an original storyline, as well as all the original cast from the cartoon, and a nice variety in gameplay, really made this one of the quintessential Batman experiences, well before the Arkham series of games. The overall presentation was also excellent, with well-detailed character models and animations, great environmental designs, and a rock-solid 60 frames per second. Whether exploring the environments, getting in hand-to-hand combat, free-falling segments, and more, Batman Vengeance was one of the best examples of a licensed game done right for the 6th generation, and an easy recommendation for the console at launch. Crazy Taxi was published by Sega and Acclaim and developed by Hitmaker. This Dreamcast port of the popular arcade game was a fantastic pick-up-and-play game for quick bursting gaming. It contained the original arcade version as well as the original map that was still based on San Francisco. In addition to that is the Crazy Box missions that will definitely test your skills if you're going to complete them all. From its addictive gameplay to its very iconic soundtrack to the vibrant visuals that all ran at 60 frames per second, Crazy Taxi was one of those games that you'd be hard-pressed not to enjoy. Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX 2 was published by Acclaim Max Sports and developed by Z-Axis. While this originally released on the PlayStation 2, this launch title for the GameCube was an enhanced port, including higher resolution texture work and 2 exclusive levels. Fans of the Tony Hawk games have plenty to enjoy here, while the developers clearly made the game stand out as its own unique identity. The game is a solid-looking launch title with nice environmental work and character animation, including ragdoll physics, as well as a smooth 60 frames per second. As much as the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games were my go-to for objective-based extreme sports gameplay, Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX 2 was one that I spent many hours playing back in the day. Disney's Tarzan Untamed was published by Ubisoft and developed by Ubisoft Montreal. Taking place after the events of the Disney animated film, Tarzan Untamed has you platforming through the jungle, swinging across ropes and climbing objects, while also taking out foes along the way. In some ways, it's actually very similar to the N64 PS1 Tarzan title. However, the game mixes it up with some surfing elements and water skiing. It's actually a solid game with nice visuals and good presentation values. Luigi's Mansion was published by Nintendo and developed by Nintendo EAD. Easily one of the GameCube's biggest launch day titles, Luigi's Mansion spun the Mario formula by being a game that focused on Luigi as the main protagonist, going around the haunted mansion that Mario is trapped in and doing some ghost busting. Luigi's Mansion was also one of the most visually stunning games for the GameCube at launch and still holds up remarkably well today. I've reviewed this one a few weeks ago, so if you haven't seen that, feel free to check that out for a more in-depth review on this one.
Mario!
Madden NFL 2002 was published by EA Sports and developed by EA Tiburon. I remember first seeing Madden 2002 on the PS2 about a month prior to the GameCube launching and was blown away at the graphics. At the time, it fooled many who gave the game a quick glance and thought that was the real thing. Gameplay was tight and responsive, and the overall presentation of the game was as realistic as it got. While I wasn't the biggest sports sim fan, I did play it quite a bit, especially with my friends back in the day that were big sports games fans. This was the best offering for American football between the 2 NFL titles that released during the launch window, but more on the next one soon.
Steps back with the throw. Barber with the reception. Touchdown, New York. He flips the pass in there for the touchdown.
Yeah, that route was all about timing between the quarterback and his receiver.
NHL Hits 2002 was published by Midway and developed by Black Box Games. This was a surprise hit for me when I got it on Christmas of 2001. NHL Hits 2002 builds upon the Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey arcade-style formula and cranks up the extreme meter to the max. In this 3v3 game, rules are thrown out the window as you check your opponents through windows, punch them for the puck during face-off, and go on fire when, you're on fire. Add in the in-depth character and team creation system, as well as so many abstract rinks to play on like the Wild West or a nightclub, and you've got one of the best sports games for the GameCube.
Disagreement on the ice? Both of them are looking to get busy. Man, oh man, that was a nasty one. I'm thinking of a word. Iceman the Destroyer!
Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader was published by LucasArts Games and developed by Factor 5. Now, this was a game that truly showed the GameCube was an absolute beast of a system when it came to its visual prowess. The ultra-detailed ships, fantastic art direction and lighting, silky smooth 60 frames per second. It really was, and still is, a sight to behold. The gameplay itself is more refined than its predecessor on the N64, and the production values are very impressive here. Factor 5 clearly had an understanding of the GameCube console's architecture and showed it on full display here. Easily one of the best launch titles for the system and for the 6th generation of consoles.
His computer's off. Luke, you switched off your targeting computer. What's wrong?
Nothing, I'm all right.
You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.
Super Monkey Ball was published by Sega and developed by Amusement Vision. This title, originally in development for the Dreamcast, made its way to the GameCube as a launch day title, and despite the cutesy aesthetic, don't let that fool you. Super Monkey Ball is a very unique game in which you control tilting the stages to roll the monkey and the ball to the goalpost. However, you will need to navigate the levels carefully from hazards and falling off the platform. It's an insanely addictive game with beautiful visuals, sublime controls, and an excellent soundtrack. Add in all the extra minigames and party games like Monkey Bowling and Monkey Target, and you're in for one of the best times on the GameCube. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 was published by Activision and developed by Neversoft. Building upon the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 formula, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 really felt like a next-gen leap for the series. First off, the 60 frames per second truly made this the most fluid gameplay the series ever saw. Additionally, they added the revert mechanic that made stringing combos near endless, making it hard to go back to previous iterations without this fantastic addition. The levels were also top-notch, with areas like the Foundry, Canada, the suburbs, and my all-time favorite level in the entire Tony Hawk Pro Skater series being the cruise ship. Overall, this was a fantastic way to kick off the generation of the Tony Hawk franchise, and easily one of the best games available at launch. Wave Race Blue Storm was published by Nintendo and developed by Nintendo Software Technology. This sequel to the N64 Classic was a great return for the series and further pushed the envelope with water physics in a game. Adding in weather effects that drastically affected the courses you raced on, the game was a blast. I reviewed this one a few months ago and was hooked into replaying everything the game offered. I have fond memories of playing this on Christmas morning and spending so much time with it. While the N64 game still holds a special place for me, Wave Race Blue Storm was a great time that took advantage of the hardware. It's just too bad it's the last we saw of this series.
Alright, you just turned a turbo. Right on. You got it, one lap down, you're in 4th place. Turbo's all yours.
So these were all titles that released on day one with the GameCube in North America. Now, let's take a look at the remaining 8 titles that released for the remainder of that holiday launch window. FIFA Soccer 2002 was published by EA Sports and developed by EA Canada. The FIFA game franchise is another massive one for EA, more so worldwide. Coming from the N64 PS1 installments, the visual leap here was evident, and the gameplay was still as tight as ever. However, I will say there's one aspect that kept me returning for this particular game: the music. Yes, you heard correctly. Partnering up with Ministry of Sound, the game had an outstanding selection of techno and trance music for the menus, but more importantly, you could actually play the game with the music turned on. This feature alone was something I loved. Easily one of my favorite FIFA installments since FIFA 98.
And a bad throw, I'm afraid. Dispossessed. A mistake to lose it back there. Great square post down the shot. Oh, it's gone in! Here's the goal again.
Extreme G3 was published by Acclaim and developed by Acclaim Studios Cheltenham. This futuristic racing franchise from the N64 returned as a launch window title for the GameCube and fired on all cylinders. I was a massive fan of the first Extreme G on N64, but was heavily disappointed in its sequel. The third installment, though, was a return to form. The game focused on a team-like structure where you chose a character from a team and took on a season with that character. But you could also do the entire campaign in co-op. Excellent visuals, frenetic gameplay that has you driving at ludicrous speeds, and a sublime techno soundtrack that was also provided by Ministry of Sound, Extreme G3 really was an awesome time. And really, what other game lets you break the sound barrier? SSX Tricky was published by EA Sports Big and developed by EA Canada. The snowboarding game that shattered my expectations of extreme sports games, SSX Tricky was the sequel to the PS2 launch exclusive SSX. However, refining every aspect of its predecessor, SSX Tricky was a snowboarding game unlike any other, introducing uber tricks, which were impossible looking tricks that were so over the top in the best way possible. They were such a spectacle to see in action. The level designs were also very over the top, leading them to each have character and memorable aspects to them. Mercury City is a staple for the series, and then you have Tokyo Megaplex, which is basically a massive pinball machine to board through. SSX Tricky is a truly sublime experience, and one that was easy to sink countless hours into. Super Smash Bros. Melee was published by Nintendo and developed by HAL Laboratory. Now, this was most certainly the most anticipated game for the GameCube and even went on to be the highest selling GameCube game ever. Super Smash Bros. Melee built upon its predecessor and provided far more content than anyone expected. A more robust character roster, far more stages, trophies to collect, home run contest, and my favorite addition to the entire series, Adventure Mode. This was the first game I fired up on my GameCube on Christmas 2001, and my mind was blown away playing this. Hands down one of the best games in the GameCube, and one of the most amazing achievements in getting this game out in time for holiday launch. Pikmin was published by Nintendo and developed by Nintendo EAD. Miyamoto's new IP was one that was unlike anything ever made. You played as Captain Olimar trapped on a mysterious planet filled with creatures he calls Pikmin. These plant-like creatures can follow you around and assist in trying to find parts to your rocket ship that are scattered around the planet. Since Captain Olimar can't do a whole lot on his own, commanding these Pikmin are essential to your survival. It's a unique take on real-time strategy in a sense, but it's a very endearing and challenging one. Visually, the game also had a very photorealistic art direction with sharp texture work. While this one didn't personally click with me at launch, it was one that clicked with me more as time went on. NFL Quarterback Club 2002 was published by Acclaim Sports and developed by Acclaim Studios Austin. In a time where Madden wasn't the only football game around, Acclaim was pushing their NFL Quarterback Club series for quite some time. I was a big fan of NFL Quarterback Club 98 on the N64, mostly because I had played that a lot with my older brother. Quarterback Club 2002 plays pretty well, and it has some core elements to make this a good football game. The visuals are a bit dated looking though, and the animations are quite stiff. But overall, it's a solid alternative to Madden 2002.
The catch is made by Davis. He's taken down at the 43-yard line.
The Simpsons Road Rage was published by Electronic Arts and developed by Radical Entertainment. Take the formula of Crazy Taxi and fuse The Simpsons into it, and that's The Simpsons Road Rage in a nutshell. Simpsons games were very hit or miss over the years, but The Simpsons Road Rage is one that is a lot of fun to experience. Again, while it is a blatant Crazy Taxi clone, it does add more content than Crazy Taxi has. A robust character roster, each with their own unique traits, is a nice touch. There are also 6 environments you can play through, many being landmarks from the cartoon. However, it's the game's humor that'll have you laughing as you play. Every character you'd expect to be here is here, and with all the original voice actors as well. I bought this a few days after getting my GameCube that Christmas, and thoroughly enjoyed this as a big fan of the show as well.
Thank you.
I love you.
In the car, Dad. Okay. You know where my family lives. You have any barf bags? I don't feel so good.
You're only prolonging the inevitable, my friend.
Universal Studios' Theme Parks Adventure was published by Kemco and developed by Naya Digital Works. A game about playing minigames based on famous Universal movie rides? That actually sounded neat. Then you start playing it, and you realize it's a game about collecting garbage to earn points to access rides, to play the minigame for a few minutes, and back to garbage collecting. It might as well have just been called Garbage Simulator. Yeah, this was a pretty bad game. The game's visuals are also very subpar, looking more like an N64 game rather than taking advantage of the GameCube hardware and making it look next-gen. I wish this was a better game, because I really like the premise of it, but ultimately, yeah, it's not a good game.
Whoa!
Hey, what's up?
Yeah!
No matter what gaming tastes you have, the GameCube had a healthy variety of titles that anyone can enjoy. Over the years, the system launched even more stellar games like Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil Zero, Resident Evil 4, Eternal Darkness, Wario World, Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes, Super Mario Sunshine, The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker, 1080 Avalanche, Star Fox Adventures, F-Zero GX, and so many more. While the GameCube was never the runaway success Nintendo and its fans hoped it would be, it's garnered a cult classic status amongst the gaming community. It even continues to get support by companies like EON that made the GCHD adapter, Retrobit that made the Prism HDMI adapter, and more recently, Retro Fighters are releasing 2 new GameCube wireless controllers called the Battler GC and Blade GC. The GameCube may have sold the least amount of units compared to the PlayStation 2 and Xbox that generation, but there's no denying that the system was excellent, and one of my all-time favorites. The fact that the console is now 20 years old is pretty wild to me, and while game prices are going up for the GameCube, there's never been a better time to revisit this classic console that delivered so many unique experiences. It had an excellent controller that stood the test of time, and I also love the Game Boy player and the whole connectivity aspect with the GBA. It was essentially a precursor to the Switch in the sense that the Game Boy games you could play on the go can now be played on the TV and taken back out on the go. The GameCube will always be near and dear to me, and no other system has captured the essence of what this console did for me. With that being said, that'll wrap up this GameCube 20th anniversary launch retrospective. So, what were your thoughts of the GameCube? Did you get one at launch? Did you get one halfway through its life cycle? What's your favorite memory with the console? Sound off in the comments below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I also want to quickly thank Lame Dad Retro Gamer, Down the Warp Pipe, Viddy Games for Fun, How to Game Differently, and Adults Have Toys Too for providing their favorite memory and thoughts about the system. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next video.
You